What's up, everybody? This is Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions, and today we're going to be doing a tutorial in the style of Wale's The Helium Balloon. What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to do something that sounds like this. All right, now I know that the title says The Helium Balloon. This is a tutorial in the style of. It's not an exact remake. I don't plan on doing a lot of remakes on this channel because I think that it's a lot more beneficial to you all as producers to see how to extrapolate a vibe from a beat and be able to make something that's similar. It's in that style, but it's your own. What you're gonna find is, the more that you grow relationships with different artists and stuff, they're gonna come to you and they're always gonna want a beat that sounds like this, but isn't an exact copy. So first, some housekeeping. I want to say what's up to the new subscribers. We got Nason, Jiggy Beats, Andrew Goodwin, Mind Bless, Muzz Beats, Labby Hassani, Fernando, Rhythm Fingers, CV Beats, Tradat, Marky Fats, and Jamal Johnson. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for subscribing to the channel. You guys go ahead and add each other up, and let's continue to build this community. The first thing that we're going to do that makes this beat in the style of the Wale track is the drums. The drum programming on the Helium Balloon is I found it to be pretty unique, and that was the first thing that I noticed, like, wow, okay, this is something that I haven't really heard before. And that's where I started it from. If you go and you watch my my tutorial on finding the BPM of a track, it's kind of like an introduction to this tutorial. What I did was I loaded the wave up from the Helium Balloon. I found the BPM, and then I just kind of mimicked their drum pattern. What's unique about this track is if you notice the tempo is 88 beats per minute. So what you have is that's a regular boom bap BPM. And what they did was they used the trap mentality and they put it into double time, which that means instead of the snares being on the 2 beat and the 4 beat, they put the snare on the 3 beat. So when a rapper's counting his bars, this 16 bar section, which would be 16 bars in straight time, is actually an 8 bar section, because the beats cut in half. The first thing that I laid down was the kicks and snares, and we wound up having something like this. Now, in order to get this vibe, the way that I went about it, if you look at what I got going on here in the first 3 kicks, that's a pretty basic, 3 kick pattern. You just clicked it in. When I go about making my drums for these types of records, I usually just click in 1/8 notes to start out with, just to kind of get a really basic idea of what's going on. So originally my drum sounded like this. That's pretty cool. You know, it's simple, but it's basic. You know, we want to keep it simple, but we don't want to be basic. So what I'll do then, you know, is I'll find a kick, like for example, this one, and I'll just start putting rolls on stuff. So I'll highlight that one, left click, split it grid, you know, find this one over here, left click, split it grid. And this is how you start to get that really, you know, that really nice push pull trap feel. So you wind up with this. So once I had the kicks in place, you know, the next step that I go to when I'm building a track like this is to go ahead and make the 808, because you know, the 808 is the main driving feature in a beat like this. So the easy way for you all to go ahead and make 808s on tracks like this, where it's just going to be following the kick pattern, is to go ahead and highlight your kick pattern. Okay, right click it, copy it, move your playhead to where the pattern is going to begin. Just highlight your 808 track and just hit Control V, and that'll paste the new MIDI region. Then what you want to do is you want to select the scale of your song. I chose to use F sharp natural minor, F sharp natural minor, and then make sure you have this clicked on and these blue notes are up, so that you can, you know, make sure you don't have any sour notes. Then you want to take your kicks, or your 808s rather, move them up to the root note of the track, and then you can start to build your bass line. Thing about this VST that I'm using is you have to hold down the note in order for it to play the whole time, and I'll show you what I mean. So when you have a sample like that, the easiest way to go ahead and to sustain those notes is you right click on all your notes as you have them all highlighted, and you use length, this function. And this is actually, if you don't have it under your shortcuts, you'll go to musical functions, go to length, and click this option right here. It's called legato. And what legato means is that when you press a note, you're holding it until it reaches the next note. So you see, here's your grid without legato, and then when you add legato. Okay. Now that you have that, you can start to build your bass line. You don't want to just be playing the same F sharp minor note over and over. It'll sound okay, but it'll be really basic. So, you know, what I do is I just kind of get the vibe of things, and the easiest way to kind of figure out where you're going to move your notes is when you go up, you want it to be your shorter notes. Okay. So I'll take my shorter hits, and I'll start moving them up. You typically either want to move up a whole octave on short notes. You want to move up a fifth. You know, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's your fifth, and a third. So fifths and thirds are good for making bass lines. So yeah, I got a short guy here. And then let's just listen to what we have now. So that was a pretty, it was a pretty decent bass line. It's got a little movement to it. It's going up and down. It's got a nice rhythm to it. So then I went ahead and I just programmed a quick a quick little hi-hat run. When I was programming the hi-hats, I didn't want to do, your typical eighth note straight. I wanted to kind of, make it a little weird because the kicks are a little unorthodox. So I wanted to go with a more unorthodox style. And I use the same method when I'm programming hi-hats. Is I'll just click in the first two eighth notes, and then once I get to a place where I want to hear a stutter, I'll just go ahead and chop them up. And that's all I did here. Is I just moved the screen resolution around and came up with this hi-hat pattern. So that's pretty trippy. The next thing I moved on to was this percussion element. You can see that in my hi-hats, I had left the the downbeat section of the bar open, and when I do that, I like to add little percussion elements in. And what I wound up with was this sound here. And I just used an eighth note triplet setting. Put them on the downbeat of every other bar, and I wound up with this. So I like that vibe. It's giving me a little bit of space. I use my plate reverb that I have set up for my custom mix settings. Then I wanted, since I had this every other bar, I wanted to balance it out with another pattern that would go on the bars that it wasn't playing. And I just found this little tambourine shot. See, so now you don't have that emptiness from the hi-hats. You fill it in with other percussion elements, and that'll add it's simple, but it's a real complexity in your drum programming. Doing things like that will set you apart from the regular guy who's just going to put a straight hi-hat going the whole way through. This will increase the listenability of your tracks. So after I got my kick snare, got the percussion going, and the 808, I was trying to find something to layer over that, because the rhythm was so strange. I was kind of having a hard time coming up with something. As I was playing it, I wasn't really too inspired to play much. So I went into my samples and I found this string sample. So I went ahead and brought that in and played it over it to see what effect I would have. So I thought it was cool. I tried time stretching it and bumping it around, and I was having a problem, getting it to loop right, and it was, the drums on this are so awkward. I like them, but they're awkward, so I wasn't able to really get something to turn around nice. So what I wound up doing was I wound up editing it with Melodyne. Just going ahead and pulling that up. And what that did for me was that gave me access to, if you take an audio file and you do that, you'll notice that there's MIDI notes here if you pay attention. And what that enabled me to do was extract the MIDI information and look at it a little bit deeper. I was able to go in here, quantize things, change a few notes, and what I wound up with after messing with it for a while was this pattern here. So I went into one of my favorite VSTs, and I kind of simplified it a little bit because there was a lot of movement, and I made it kind of go along with the rhythm of the kick a little bit. It more follows the rhythm of the drums, and I wound up with this. See, so you notice instantly it has a better it has a more cleaner vibe. It follows the beat along a lot more. But I noticed that these strings just alone by themselves were kind of thin, so I added another layer. And that sounded really good. That sounded really rich and lush, but I wanted something that was a little bit more atmospheric, something a little bit more washed out. So I added another layer of a patch, and it sounded like this. Now if I wanted to, I could have just looped this up and, left it like this, but I didn't want to be basic. I was trying to keep it simple. So I went and the next thing is I went and I got I found a sample pack of Motown acapellas. If you guys want to search that on Google, it's a really good resource to have. It has a bunch of old songs. This was Heard It Through the Grapevine, and I was able to find these chops inside of it. Now, whenever I use one of these older samples, one of my favorite things to do is just to put a little bit of auto tune on it. That for me, it adds more of a modern feel. Some people do it. I don't know a lot of producers that do it, but for one, you make sure that it's in harmony with your track, and two, it just sounds more modern. It seems like if anybody's ever singing on a track, they're putting auto tune on it. So just to have that older voice, but to hear auto tune on it, I think adds like a kind of like a new school essence to your tracks, and it's something that I definitely recommend doing. So once I had that on, I had this. So I like that. It was getting a little bit more complex, and I was starting to at this point I was starting to hear things in my head, you know, different melodies coming out and calling out to me. Um, I wanted something in the low register to kind of help with that 808. So I just took a regular grand piano and I programmed this little 3-note melody, kept it simple but it's powerful. See, so now there's an aggressiveness behind them really nice fancy strings. So that adds a lot of help to the track. I wanted to add a little bit of tension. So I found a choir patch I liked, and I used another simple 3-note melody going up and wound up coming out like this. See, so now you're starting to notice a little bit of tension, a little bit of epicness, and that all comes from, using some very simple melodies, but not stacking the exact same notes on top of each other. You see, like I could have went and used the same exact notes for the choir. Here's the choir up here, as I did on the piano. And it would have worked. It would have sounded fine. But when you go ahead and you make those slight changes, the way these notes interact with these notes will create a certain harmony, and that will give your beat a certain mood. So you want to experiment with things like that. And the last thing I added was just a simple a simple melody. I wanted something to kind of have a trap vibe to it, but for it to be a little bit more fancy and sophisticated. Now, your typical trap melody. I'll play it for you right here. It's really, as soon as I play this, you guys will recognize it right away. A lot of trap beats have this melody. So when I want to take and put a trap vibe into something, but I don't want to give it this, this straight up, basic ass trap melody, what I'll do is, since this beat was a little slower, is I use the same notes. Like I'll program this. I'll be like, okay, this is my trap mode. Bing, 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 bing. Put those in, and then I'll spread them out, and kind of give the beat a different feel. So after doing that, I wound up with this sound here. So I like that. It was pretty creepy. With the beat, it sounds like this. Now, originally I used a harp sample from Nexus, because I got strings and a choir and a piano, and everything's all acoustic instruments, and I wanted to kind of keep that feel so nothing sounded too weird. And then but for this melody, I wanted it to have a more different trippy quality with still using an acoustic instrument. So what I wound up doing is I wound up going to Guitar Rig, which is just such an excellent plugin for everything. I never use guitars with this. I use it's always something new. So, and it's really easy to browse. And I just went to effects, and I wanted I wanted to try a different effect, and this is a really slow arpeggio. I found arpeggio delays. I wound up doing some tweaking to the delay. You never want to use the exact preset. You want to kind of dial it in. I think a lot of people, to get off subject for a moment, but I think a lot of people kind of underestimate their VSTs when they go through them, and they don't like the presets. Like, the presets are just a starting point. They're just to show you what you can do with this software. The software is intended for you to be creative and develop your own sound within it. So once I got this delay going, the harp sounded like this. So that was really cool. I really love this psych delay inside of Guitar Center, because it has the capability of reversing the delayed notes, and that always adds a really trippy texture to it. Hence the name psych delay. So, once I had that, I was pretty satisfied with the with the main ride of the beat. Now, as far as the arrangement is concerned, this beat is 88 beats per minute. And like the original song in the Wale in the Helium Balloon, they didn't make it 16 bar verses as according to halftime. Or double time rather. They made it 16 bar verses in accordance with 88 beats per minute. And that is done because if you would have used 16 bar verses to the double time standard, essentially what you're making is 16 bar verses at 44 beats per minute. That's going to be a really long song. And if a rapper typically raps on an 88 beat per minute song all day, so this 16 bars here is more than enough time for them to say what they want to say. So I formatted it, in the 88 beats per minute mind state. So here's my 16 bar verse here, with all the sounds in it. And for the chorus, I could have started taking things out or adding things, but I really liked what they did with their song. If you're not familiar with the song, just go ahead and YouTube it, The Helium Balloon, where they used they kind of just abandoned this beat for 8 bars and just used a bass drop, and they added like this sample of Seinfeld, basically equating being a fan of somebody to holding on to a child holding on to a helium balloon. It's actually a pretty cool song. So I just went ahead and did the same thing. Here I used the 8 bar section. Here I used the 4 bar section, kind of like how their song went. So my chorus is, rather than, a chorus doesn't always have to be the same exact beat with a lead on top of it, or the same exact beat with some horns, or the same exact beat with an arpeggio. Like the chorus could be a part that goes down. That's a really cool technique, and it's something that's becoming very popular in hip hop right now. So it's another reason why I wanted to do this tutorial. The first thing that I started with in this section was I just found a bass patch. I was looking for something that had a really low tone, and something that kind of had a synth layered over it. Omnisphere is good for patches like that if you have it. And I just programmed a very simple bass line. This is what you call a walk down, where you go down the steps on the piano. So I wound up with this. So I figured that would add a nice contrast. If somebody kind of wanted to do something similar with this track and have a and have maybe put a movie sample of somebody talking shit, or maybe get one of your boys like how Kendrick Lamar would have Schoolboy on like Section 80, talking about the neighborhood or something. Just something different than just the same chant over and over again. The next thing I added was I still wanted to get another synth overtone on there, and I just bought this the new output synth. It's called Signal. This thing is really cool. So I was just just flipping through presets, and I wound up finding this preset here. I used the same notes. I just increased the octave. I just moved it up higher in the register. And when you layer the two together, you wind up with this. And that's a technique from electronic music that can really translate well into hip hop, as far as keeping it simple but not being basic. You see, the melody isn't what's complex. What adds interest to that sound is the modulation, the way it wobbles. And that's done through parameters inside the synth. As I go on making more tutorials, we'll get into sound design, and I'll show you how to wobble things inside your own synths. But that's just good to keep in mind, is sometimes you'll have a great simple melody, and what you need to do is maybe mess with the parameters inside your synth to add some interest. On to the last part of the beat is I liked what I had there, but I wanted to add something, that something a little bit more creepy, something that added a little bit more tension to this section. And I wound up finding this sound inside Omnisphere. So that to me was perfect. When you play them all three together, you wind up with this. So I really like that. I thought it was very effective for the intro. The only thing I really did as far as the arrangement there was I thought that it would sound pretty epic if we started with just the strings and maybe added a little percussion. What you want to do when you're building your intros is you want to, for the most part, they're going to be 8-bar intros. You want to start with, your main focus element first, and then on bar 4, kind of add a couple more things that'll build up to the beat. So this is what our track wound up sounding like after everything was all said and done. And there you have it. That's the style of Wale Helium Balloon. Just to recap, that vibe is really found in the drums and the 808. You can kind of put whatever you want on top of it. But the real lesson here is that you can take a boom bap BPM like 87, 88, 90, half time or double time it. You know what I'm saying? Put your snares on the 3, use some trap rolls, use trap hi-hats, put an 808 on it, and then take a sample that you would chop at that rhythm, and really start to mix the genres, of trap and real hip hop or whatever the fuck you want to call it, and kind of work to put together that sound. And I think that's why Wale wound up using that beat, because he's one of these artists, who's at the forefront of making this mix. So if this tutorial helped you out at all, please give me a like. Those likes help. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to my subscribers. Let's grow the community. Let's help each other out. And that's all for today, man. This is Concrete Zebra with Craft Master Productions. I'll see you on the next one.